Good afternoon, I'm Charmaine Colvin and you are listening to Apna Radio 93.9 Dublin South FM. On India this week, Quad foreign ministers have strongly condemned the Pahalgam attack, calling for perpetrators, organisers and financiers of this reprehensible act to be brought to justice without any delay. They urged all UN member countries to cooperate with all authorities under international law in this regard. Indian Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong and Japan Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya met in Washington this week for the second Quad Foreign Ministers meeting this year. In a joint statement, there was no mention of the Russia-Ukraine war or the conflict in the Middle East or West Asia, rather strong condemnation for the terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir on April the 22nd this year, which claimed the lives of 25 Indian nationals and one Nepali citizen while injuring several others. They also launched the Quad Critical Minerals Initiative and announced plans to host the first Quad Indo-Pacific Logistics Network field training exercise this year and launched the Quad Ports of the Future Partnership in Mumbai. The next Quad Leaders Summit is to be hosted by India later this year. Reaffirming its steadfast commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, the Quad said, as four leading maritime nations in the Indo-Pacific, we are united in our conviction that peace and stability in the maritime domain underpin the security and prosperity of the region. The exiled Tibetan spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, has confirmed that he will have a successor after his death, ending years of uncertainty. Celebrating his 90th birthday this week, the Dalai Lama said in a video message that only the trust that he founded could appoint his successor, and said no one else has any authority to interfere in this matter. According to Tibetan tradition, Dalai Lamas are reincarnated after they die. The current Dalai Lama's exile from Tibet, after China annexed it in the 1950s, has made succession a highly contentious issue. Beijing rejected the statement, saying his successor would be from inside China and must be approved by the government. Hundreds of followers gathered on Wednesday to hear the long-awaited announcement in the Indian town of Dharamshala, where the Dalai Lama lives. In his statement, he reiterated that the Gaden Podrang Trust, the office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, should accordingly carry out the procedures of search and recognition in accordance with past tradition. Dharamshala is holding the Dalai Lama's milestone 90th birthday celebrations, which began on Monday, his birthday according to the Tibetan lunar calendar, and will conclude on the 6th of July, his official birthday. Celebrations will be attended by more than 7,000 guests, including a number of Indian ministers. With just days to go before a 9th of July deadline set by US President Donald Trump, hopes of clinching an interim trade pact between Delhi and Washington remain alive but increasingly entangled in hard bargaining. Despite hints from the White House that a deal is imminent, and Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's upbeat assertion that Delhi would welcome a big, good, beautiful agreement in response to Trump's claim that a trade deal with Delhi is coming and would open up the Indian market, negotiators remain locked in tough discussions. Indian trade officials extended their stay in Washington for another round of talks, even as Delhi signals very big red lines on farm and dairy protections and the US presses for wider market openings. The tone remains optimistic, but the windows to strike a deal appear to be narrowing. If talks collapse, experts believe Trump is unlikely to reinstate the steep 26% tariff rate on India. Instead, a 10% baseline tariff may apply to most Indian imports, on top of existing MFN rates. A most favoured nation rate is the lowest tariff rate that a World Trade Organization member country levies on another WTO member. While 57 countries face these levies in April, only the UK has secured a deal so far. At least 34 people have been killed in a massive fire at a pharmaceuticals factory in the southern state of Telangana, according to news agencies. The blast took place during working hours on Monday at a unit of Siraj Industries, leaving several injured and in critical condition. Police have registered a case against the management of Siraj Industries based on a complaint by the son of a victim. Many of the workers were migrants from states such as Odisha, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal. The ruling Congress government in the state expressed deep shock over the massive fire accident and said compensation will be given to the families of the deceased and injured. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also expressed condolences and announced compensation of 200,000 rupees for families of the deceased and 50,000 to those injured. And finally, Italian luxury fashion label Prada has said that it acknowledges the Indian roots of its new footwear line, days after the design sparked a controversy in India. The sandals, showcased at the Milan Fashion Show last week, had an open-toe braided pattern that closely resembled the Kolhapuri sandals made in the Indian states of Maharashtra and Karnataka. Prada described the sandals as leather footwear, but did not mention its Indian origins, prompting backlash and allegations of cultural appropriation in India. Named after a city in Maharashtra where they are made, Kolhapuri sandals trace their roots back to the 12th century. And that's all on India this week. You have been listening to Apna Radio 93.9 Dublin South FM.